What's up guys, Vulkan here. Today we are talking Last Epoch, specifically going through and doing an introduction to the game. There's been a lot of interest about this game lately, and a lot of people are really kind of on the fence. Should I get into beta, or should I just wait for release? Well, it's really up to you. At release, the game's going to be $15. Right now, to get into beta, you get beta plus a pet, plus the soundtrack is $35, but you get to play right now and get to experience the game as it develops. So it's really up to you. Doesn't matter to me. But I just want to show you guys what is available now. So you have a choice of 5 classes at launch. 4 classes are available right now because the rogue is currently not implemented. Now let's just go through these classes to show you guys a little bit of what they're all about. So you have the acolyte on the far left. It can specialize in lich or necromancer. Warlock is not implemented yet. That's coming at a later point in time. Now on the left hand side, you guys probably notice these optional challenges here. Solo, hardcore, masochist. You can turn on all of these to have just a horrible time in terms of difficulty. You can turn on a couple of them. If you just want to do hardcore, you can do that too. So it's really all up to you. This is not required by any means. I think normal difficulty will be enough for most players. So acolyte has, like I said, lich, necromancer, warlock. You have the primalist, which has beastmaster, shaman, and druid. You have the sentinel, which is void knight, paladin, and forge guard. And you have the mage, which is sorcerer, spellblade, and rune master, but not yet implemented. So once you choose your character, go ahead, hit create character. It's going to send you into the tutorial. However, I'll see you guys on the other side where we're going to talk about skill specializations and talent trees. Okay, so we're on my Sentinel, and I want to show you guys talent trees and skill specialization. We'll start with talent trees because this is what we were just talking about at the character creation screen. Last Epoch does talent trees, passive trees, however you want to kind of call them, a little bit differently. So every class has a base class that you have to put 20 points into before you can unlock its subclasses. So for me, I have the Sentinel base class. Now your base class has abilities and nodes that are all kind of pulled from your subclasses. So for my Forge Guard, Void Knight, and Paladin, I'm going to have some Void things, some Retaliation things, some Fire things, some throwing skill. All of these things are going to be little kind of peppered through here. That way it gives me a taste of what exactly do I want to spec into. Now after you hit 20 points, you unlock your Mastery classes, which is what they're called. Then from here you can choose what one do I like. What's my play style that I'm looking for? Now, if you notice, Void Knight has this kind of lock up here, has a block. Forge Guard does not. That's because I mastered in my Forge Guard class. And the reason I mastered this one is because I wanted to create a Fire Knight style ability, fire build, and really kind of specialize in that. I'm working towards Molten Blade. Once I get that, that's going to be my bread and butter build, or bread and butter ability, and it's going to make life a lot easier for me. But just because I mastered in Forge Guard doesn't mean I can't put points into Void Knight or Paladin. And that's the key thing. I only cannot master in those. I can no longer master in Paladin or Void Knight. Once you choose a mastery, that is your mastery for that character. You are stuck with that. You can't go back. You can respec, so I can go back and drop all 29 points out of my tree that I have right now and start all over, but I will still have that Forge Guard mastery. So that's something to keep in mind. But you can pop between all 3 of these and put points in. Let's say you are really needing some void protection. Well, you can flip up to Void Knight and you can grab Abyssal Endurance up to 10 points for an additional 150 void protection. So that is something you can do. Now you notice along the right hand side you have different kind of boxes here. These are skills. So at a certain point right here you gain these skills. So 5 points in gives me Ring of Shields, 10 points in gives me Molten Blade, and then an additional 15 total points in here gives me Manifest Armor. Now there are different ones at different points. So if I were to look at Paladin, you know, at 5 points I get Healing Hand, but then all the way up here at Paladin level 30 I get Judgment. Same thing with Void Knight, up to 35 I get Ravaging Stance. So they are different and it gives you a little bit extra flavor for all your characters. So let's jump over and let's talk about skill specializations. This is really where everybody gets excited about Last Epoch and where I would say a lot of the build variety comes from. Skill specializations are something pretty unique to this game. It takes that kind of feeling of Path of Exile's passive tree and puts it onto each skill. So if we were to look at Hammer Throw has its own skill tree, and if we can go through, we can kind of talk about some of these nodes. So you start out, and as you use this ability, as it's on your bar, you're going to start getting points, these specialization points, up to level 20. So you get 20 total points that you can put out here in your specialization tree. And you can go up and do winged hammers. Hammers travel faster. Then you can do steadfast path and go all the way through and kind of build out how you want your hammer throw to work. Do you want your hammers to shoot out in a nova, so they shoot out in more of like a star pattern? Then you go with Avatar of the Spire. Do you want them to orbit you? Well, great, and you go hammer vortex. This is how you can kind of create that hammered-in build that a lot of people have been looking at as well. Now, there is a couple key things here on the specialization tree. Right here you see these little dots. That means it requires 3 points. So that means I need to put at least 3 points of 5 into force of impact in order to unlock collision. Collision just needs 1 point to unlock ricochet, which just needs 1 point to unlock chaining hammers. But then down here you have 4 points. So 4 of the 5 points for Battle Ruse are required to unlock Hammer of Want. So you have all of these different things, and you kind of have to strategize where you want to spend your points. Because right now it looks like, oh, I'm just going to spend 20 points and I can get most of these nodes. Not necessarily. You have to drop 4 points into this node by itself in order to unlock this one. So there is a little bit of strategy to it. Figure out where you want to go. Now, if you want, so here's like a shield throw ability here. Now, if you want to respec, or let's say you put the wrong point in and you want to kind of pull it back out, you can click respec. You have 2 options. You can despecialize the skill, which means you pull all of your skill points out, your experience out, and you reset the skill completely to 0, but you get to slot another skill in its place. So as you can see up here, you have 5 slots. These 5 slots are your 5 specialized skills. And obviously down here in your skill bar, you have 5 spots for skills. So you can go through and swap these out, and obviously you want to pick the ones you're going to be using, that way you get the most bang for your buck. In addition to that, you can remove skill points. Now when you remove a point, what happens is it actually lowers your skill by 1 level. So shield throw is level 12. If I were to remove a point, I'm able to pull that point back out where I misclicked and put it somewhere I didn't want to put it, but I lose that point and I go down to level 11 and I have to re-level again in order to get that point back. So if I wanted to go back down, let's say I wanted to pull 5 points out, then I would go back to level 7 for shield throw and have to re-earn experience-wise those 5 points. So that causes players to think a little bit about, what do I want to do, strategize a little bit more, and avoid just throwing points willy-nilly out here. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, all of these skills have different things. So here's a popular skill. I know a lot of people are going to be using this one. This is Warpath, aka Spin to Win, Cyclone, however you want to kind of call it. This is the Spin to Win skill. Now, you can do a few different things with this. You can go up this direction to Void Spiral. While spinning, your attacks deal additional void damage, and you take less void damage, which then connects you over to Apocalypse Whirl, which gives you a chance to inflict Time Rot, which is a debuff that reduces enemy attack and cast speed by 15%, increases their stun duration by 25%, and deals 20 void damage per second onto them. Then you can specialize into Abyssal Tempest to deal more damage against enemies afflicted with Time Rot, and go from the Abyss. Each second while spinning, you actually cast out a Void Abyssal Orb, which seeks enemies and detonates, dealing void damage in area. So by this point, you are spinning in a circle, you're launching orbs out at everybody, they're getting void damage, they're getting Time Rot. If they have Time Rot, you're dealing more damage to them, and you can create a pretty badass blender style build just using Warpath. So you can see kind of how these specialization trees really mold the skills and allow you to create something completely different. At its base, it is a ability that deals physical damage and takes quite a bit of mana. At its peak, you can have it throwing out all sorts of AoE things, dealing increased damage. You can have it so it no longer allows you to move. You can't move, but your area of effect and your hit damage are increased by 100%, which that's something you can do. So there's all sorts of things you can do to kind of mold your build and mold your character, which is pretty cool. So that wraps up part 1 of the beginner's guide. Now part 2 is going to touch on end game, crafting, uniques, and set pieces. That one's going to be a little bit longer video, but I think it's going to help introduce people to the itemization for the game and what they're going to be doing for a lot of the end game. So hope you guys all enjoyed this one. Hope to see you on the next one. Let me know what you think so far of these Last Epoch videos in the comments section below. And as always, guys, thank you for watching. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you next time.